awarded Ms. Kramer for a distinguished career as a public servant, and we especially thank her for her support and friendship to 30 years after and the Iranian Jewish community. Please welcome our panelist and moderator.
Thank you all very much. It's an honor and a delight for each of us to be here. And of course, we're interested in a lively panel, not just for its own sake, but it stands between this moment and a great reception. I'm very proud also to be here on Mayor Villaraigosa's behalf, and I again send his regrets for being unable to be here as he was dealing with this horrible, just horrible train crash in Chatsworth. And while it might be obvious that I work for the mayor, it's pretty clear to me I work for Sam Yebri. So, if we could just, we're going to dispense with our introductory remarks in the interest of having a lively discussion around the questions that were asked about All Politics is Local. And the rules of the road today, ladies and gentlemen, are, we'll pose these umbrella questions that have been posed for us. I would ask you to answer them in a crisp and lilting way, because you are all esteemed thought leaders. And if I interrupt, it will only be out of kindness. And then we will move to your questions, because after all, if we have a panel about civic engagement and you are not engaged, we will not end on the right note. So let's get right to it, please. So what about this business about being local? Why should the Iranian Jewish community being involved in national affairs and state affairs? Why political activities at the local level? And we'll start with you, Madam. Wendy.
Thank you. And I just have to say, when I walked in this room today, I think we all had the same impression, which was, wow, look at how many people are here for this new, fairly new organization and what you've done. And I had to say, a lot of young people. I still feel young. My age doesn't reflect that, but I still feel young, those of you in this room. And local government is so important. And I, as you heard in my bio, I started to work for Mayor Bradley, actually interning for him when I was in college and in high school. And as I listened to this video, a young woman talking about she was student body president. I was student body president at my high school. And the important things about local government is, one, we use the bully pulpit, and you'll hear from our assembly member, to support state and federal legislation that can have a great impact. But more importantly, it is serving as role models for young people to be able to believe that they too can be an elected official, that they can impact in their neighborhoods, whether it be through quality of life issues or public safety issues, or as I mentioned, through the bully pulpit. And so as a local elected official, I love being in the city council, because you can touch and feel. There are moments when as today, when I was at the farmer's market in Studio City, where I was with my 5-year-old and 10 people came up to me and he looked at me as though, you know, Mom, could you just stop talking to people? But they asked me about this development in the neighborhood. They asked me about making sure that the farmers market didn't have smoking there, and different issues. But local government is really where I think the rubber hits the road and is so critical. And I saw Robin even looking at me. That I'll cut off and go to the next time.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I'm finishing my first term in the State Assembly. In last year, nobody thought I had a chance. I was elected in November. December I was sworn in, and in January 1st, I set out to divest $24 billion from the Islamic Republic of Iran. Not one person, thank you. Not one person thought a freshman Republican in a minority party could move such a mountain, and yet we were able to do it. But we weren't doing it because of my efforts. I reached out through the internet and through organizations, and it was the organizations and the grassroots efforts that focused my colleagues in the right direction. You know, we have a lot of people who say that they believe a certain way, but when push comes to shove, sometimes politics can get in the way of doing the right thing. But when they get a call from you locally, when the local mayor calls, when other people start calling, it's not Joel Anderson speaking to them, it's their community speaking to them, and that's the most powerful tool in this movement. So I want to thank you for your support in that, but I think that's an excellent example of how community activism can make a difference on a state and national level.
Thanks, Robin. The Anti-Defamation League is actually known as an international organization with the mission to defend against the defamation of the Jews and to secure justice and fair treatment for all people. Actually, on a side note, I just have to tell you, Sam Yebri started out as an intern at ADL, so great things come from the ADL. But it's also, and one of the things that it realized from the outset is it can't make international impact without local involvement. So there are 30 regions, and in the regions we function as community-based organizations. Why should you get involved locally? Number one, to have a voice in the process, to stand up for Jews everywhere, to stand up for Jews here, and to stand up for others who are victimized by stereotyping and hate crimes. Two, in itself, to defy stereotype. So we are not insular. We are not only about ourselves. We care about the greater good. We care about the community. That's one of the stereotypes we battle, and we can really do ourselves as a Jewish community a great deal of good by getting involved locally and showing people our charitable and political impact. And three, and I'll say this to you, it's going to sound a little bit, I don't know, zen, but we get involved, and you should get involved simply because you can. Think about the people in the world who don't have that option. You have that option. It's a privilege. Use it.
Thank you. Robin, thank you for the question. Let me first say what a pleasure it is for me to share the dais with such a distinguished group of speakers, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a great deal just sitting here and listening to everybody. Let me also add my humble congratulations to 30 years after for putting off such a magnificent conference today. I think the board of directors deserves a round of applause from everybody. And 30 years after it, I said this morning, really is a call for all of us in the Persian communities to stop and reflect where we are 30 years after the revolution. And where we are is we've done very well financially, we've done very well culturally, we have our places of worship, we have our cultural centers, and it's now time to move forward politically. This is the story of all immigrant communities. Many of them take a lot longer than 30 days to start to move forward with this sense of belonging, with this sense of ownership, of being a part of the new home that they've come to. We're now, I believe, starting to do that more and more. But all politics is local. I just came back from Washington, D.C. The senators are dealing with local politics. Congress people are dealing with local politics. The assembly member is looking to a local constituency to satisfy. So all politics in the United States of America starts from a local base. And everybody is looking to the constituencies that they represent to do as good a job for them as possible. That happens on the national level in Sacramento, and certainly it happens on a local level here. But why is it important to start to become involved more and more locally? It's all of the contact that one has. It's kind of a greater sense of gratification because the results of your work are more tangible. But it's because everything starts with the community. Everything starts at the grassroots level, and it's from there. We don't have a situation in this country, as I think we did in Iran, where you have a top-down kind of system of government. Here, the more you look into it, you see that it's more a bubble-up system. It starts with the grassroots. It starts with community activists. It starts with groups expressing their opinions, their preferences, and the idea is that will filter up to the top, and that elected leaders will do truly the will of the people. So that's why it's very, very important to become involved locally, and I believe that the Persian community is truly ready, especially the Persian Jewish community, to move forward with an aggressive way, to truly play a part in this new home that we've adopted and which has been really so kind and so welcoming to us and which has opened up so many opportunities to this community.
So this is a very confusing place, Los Angeles, and there are any number of communities who call this their second home, from Armenia and Mexico and Korea, from Salvador, and so on. So what would you say in this very confusing place? How should the Iranian Jewish community work with these other groups here, who themselves are communities within communities? How does that go? And if you know a good story about when it worked or when it hasn't, to illustrate, that'd be great. And we'll start, David, and go this way.
All right. I think, as I say, the Persian community during the 30 years that it's been here has gone through its various stages. The first was a stage of trauma. Second was a stage of, I think, insularity and self-protection in the wake of the hostage crisis and the really a dreadful atmosphere that was just prevalent at that time. Through time, there's been the establishment of businesses, the establishment of cultural centers, a network of self-help and to help one another. But you know, now we're starting to see more and more of a foray into the political realm, and so you know, we're seeing it with participation with politicians, participation with other groups, participation with temples which have traditionally been Ashkenazi and have had more of an American membership, and as I say, today we're seeing an example of yet another step in that direction. But I think it's a step to be encouraged and to be built upon. And the interesting thing is that this assimilation is also happening while the community is recognizing its own heritage, and these children or young people that we saw up on the during the video, they recognize their lineage. They recognize their heritage. They recognize that they are from a Persian Jewish background. And yet, they're Americans. My 3 kids are born here. So, as I say, I mean, I'm just seeing very, very positive things at this point in time. And this conference is really an illustration of a movement truly in the right direction.
Thank you. And, you know, when we look at Los Angeles, it is probably the most diverse city in the country. And nothing is more familiar, and everything now relates because I have a 5-year-old who started kindergarten, which was very hard for me, not so hard for him. But when you walk in there and see the diversity of the people that are in that room, those young kids, and you see in this room the numbers of people, and you hate to say that politicians only listen to the loudest voice or the larger numbers, but you know what? We listen to everyone, but boy, it makes a difference when you know that a group of people, whatever their interests may be, and particularly if there's a Persian Jewish community, and you have hundreds of those individuals and young people who not only vote, but work hard, are part of the business community, part of the social fabric of Los Angeles, that relationship is so critically important. And you see that happening on a number of other levels with the immigrant communities that are here in Los Angeles, and how these communities can work together. My husband, and I know Robin is familiar with this, and part of the Jewish community worked on a documentary on Darfur. And the whole concept was never again, that the Jewish community would stand up and say, we're going to use our voices, not only internationally, but here locally, where we had Darfur Observance Day here in the city of Los Angeles. And that was guided and directed by the Jewish community and working with the African American community here in Los Angeles. And so you can use those relationships with the diverse groups in Los Angeles for common issues of social justice, common interest of having a strong business environment here in the city of Los Angeles, making sure that there's a good educational system. But each of the groups have very common interests, and the Persian community, as you've mentioned, David, is really defining their strength and their voice here in Los Angeles, and we've seen that. Our mayor has been very instrumental in appointing 3 Persian general managers in the city of Los Angeles, the most we have ever had, and those individuals, David being one of them, Paria Bassi, as well as Andrew Edelman, demonstrating that there is a place in this city for Persians and Persian Jews to be active and for their voice to be heard.
Well, thank you, Wendy. Some statistics, an observation, and then a shameless plug. Some statistics. So it's interesting you should call this 30 years after, because just about that same time period is about when Los Angeles developed into this massively international and diverse city. In the 60s, Los Angeles was the least diverse major city in the country. Least diverse. So we're just also dealing in this city with a transformation, and you're not alone. We're not alone. I'm first-generation American, too. It seems like maybe most of the city is. And so what an opportunity we have as sort of a young force in this diverse world, this world economy, whether it's Pacific Rim, whether it's Latin American countries, whether it's Middle Eastern countries, to show the world, lead the world maybe by example, how we can do things in Los Angeles. Because there's a lot of young people that are first-generation Americans looking to answer this exact question around the city. So really, the opportunity is there. That's the observation. The shameless plug is ADL is actually a fantastic place to come and do this, because it's always been part of our philosophy since 1913 to stand up for others as well as ourselves. And in doing so, we build coalitions and we work with communities of interest all around the city. We have a Latino Jewish Roundtable that's in its 15th year, very prominently known, works with community leaders, business leaders, academic leaders of the Mexican American, South American, and Central American communities that are in Los Angeles. And last year we started an Asian Jewish initiative, which brings together 4 community-based organizations from Korean American, Philippine American, Chinese American, and Japanese American, along with ADL, to talk about issues of concern and interest and commonality, and even things we don't have in common. That's just 2 examples. There's tons more. Come talk to me about the ADL if you're interested.
Well, I think that those are all excellent points. And I think that when you're thinking in terms of cultures and people coming to the United States and assimilating into the communities, in doing that outreach, it's best measured by where they have elected officials. We have a mayor from the Persian community. We have other officials who are running for city councils and mayorships up and down the state. And I don't think that you'd have the courage or the success in running for those offices unless you reached out beyond your community and represented an area. And I think that when measuring that assimilating into society and measuring pulling together, there's no finer measure. And I think that we've seen in the last few years a real change as we move forward.
So I'm going to ask a little pushy question to follow up, which is, to work with people who are the other, who are different, requires the building of relationships, taking risks, and all that kind of stuff. So starting with you, Wendy, in your judgment, your experience, what is, and in local terms, what is the LA Persian community doing too little of, and what too much of in local political terms, in your view?
I wouldn't say too much of. I think it is too little of having the presence and participating, and that's what the 30 Years Later organization is about, is getting involved. I mean, even the city of Los Angeles, it's only been in the last few years that we've celebrated Nowruz with the city council, and gotten engaged and educating everyone about the Persian and the Persian Jewish community here in Los Angeles. I think we would like to see you engaged in everything from neighborhood councils. When I look at our neighborhood councils, they are not as diverse as they should be, and particularly in the Persian community. Like to see the Persian community involved in our commissions across the city, and I know Robin and the mayor is always looking for new people to be part of those commissions, to get active, to be there in the city council. But let your voices be heard, not only on issues that are important specifically for your culture, but also in quality of life issues, so that people won't pinpoint you into just one little box, but instead that you're an active community activist on a number of levels.
Anybody else? Anybody else want to answer that Pushy question? David.
I'll take a stab at it. And I think those are all very, very good observations. What I would say is that this is still a very young community. And you know, if we take a look throughout the history of immigrant communities in America, how long have other communities taken to get even to the place that we're now in the Persian community and in the Persian Jewish community in terms of the process of assimilation and involvement? Still, I think that this community is truly ready to do a great deal more. And that does mean joining all kinds of groups, grassroots groups, neighborhood councils, applying for commissions, and also getting involved politically, financially. There is, you know, politics requires money. It's the way the world works. You know, as you take a look at the presidential campaigns at this point, and it's an entire industry that you're seeing before you on television. It's not just an ad that appeared there. There's a juggernaut, a behemoth of an industry that is involved with the whole political process. And to get involved in it also requires a financial commitment as well. But I think, again, that the Persian community is beginning to see more and more how the system works, how they can get better involved in it. And it isn't simply a matter of a self-centered approach at all. We live in this country. What matters here, what happens here matters to us. What happens in Los Angeles happens to us. What happens in America happens to us. So if we want to see our values reflected, if we want to see a better future for our children and our grandchildren, we have to get involved politically. And if we're going to get involved politically, it means joining groups, it means working with others, and it also means sharing the wonderful affluence that we've been very, very fortunate to gather during the time that we've been in this country. It's a matter of giving something back. But as I say, I think we're getting there, and we're getting there in a time much shorter than it's taken other communities to get to this place.
Mine is a minor point on a slightly different tack. We struggle when we monitor hate crimes with groups that are afraid to come forward. In our experience, the immigrant groups are the most afraid to come forward. They come from communities where they didn't trust law enforcement, perhaps. So I would just say the one thing that all communities who are relatively new or even first generation but were raised by parents who had this sort of mindset is please, please do report when you are a victim or you have witnessed a hate crime or an anti-Semitic incident. Please do call the ADL. We'll help you through the process and getting straightened out with law enforcement and so forth. But it's really critical that you do come forward so we have an accurate record of things that are going on and so that we can right the wrongs that are going on in the community.
Question from the audience for you, Amanda, while we're on it, which is the roundtables that you were speaking of, the Latino Jewish roundtable, Asian Jewish roundtables. These include Latino Jews, Asian Jews, or Asians and Jews. And what happens here? I mean, what about this multiculturalism mix at this table?
Yeah, my favorite guy on the Asian Jewish initiative is a guy named Vince Gonzalez, who's Philippine and Jewish. Okay, that's so typical LA. No, typically the concept of bringing these groups together is not Jews from all these different communities. It is folks that are not Jewish from different communities coming together with the Jewish community to talk together and share together.
Question from the moderator to the audience. How many of you are registered to vote? Who is not but really wants to? So there may be one. There's a voter registration table here as you leave. And then one more question, me to you. Do you know who your school board member is? Yes? Who represents you on your local public school board? Do you know their name? Do you know this person's name? Or what they're about? The local public school board. My answer to the question, too little or too much? Find out who that is. It's in the interest of Iranian Jews, Jews everywhere, but particularly in the United States, to have a well-educated electorate. And our democracy depends on it. let's move to the third question, if we could, which is really about the diversity of the Jewish community. And given that we are many communities here, do you believe, would it be your answer, that Jews still have interests? And if so, what are they to promote? Amanda.
Can I jump in on this? This is one of the things we struggle with. Everyone thinks Jews are so assimilated and so affluent and are not victims of anything. 1 out of 10 hate crimes in this county is against Jews or Jewish institutions. And I'm just going to ask you a question. If you had to guess the percentage of hate crimes based on religious affiliation, not race, those are by far and away predominantly against African Americans, but hate crimes against religious affiliation. So think about hate crimes against Muslims, hate crimes against Jews, hate crimes against others. Just in your head, think of an answer to this question. What percentage of those would you expect in Los Angeles County to be against Jews? Would you believe me if I said it's close to 80%? Right? So we have interests.
I want to agree wholeheartedly with Amanda. As a city council member, we get phone calls about, serious crimes of murder and so forth, but also we have hate crimes as something that we want to be reported. And the only hate crimes that I have had in my district have been against the Jewish people. And it is important to let your voice be heard. And I think just to add on to what David mentioned a few minutes earlier, and it relates to this, is you should not be afraid to use your voice. And when you're either contributing or going to vote or you meet with an elected official about what is important to you, that's what this job is all about, that we need to hear from you. And to ensure that you have representation of individuals who are going to speak out for you. And that is what's so exciting to see an increase in the number of Persian Jews that are getting elected to office. As a woman, we see this all the time. People say, oh, women have made it. They've done okay. Well, we clearly have seen that that is not the case. And we see those stereotypes of people, whether it be a woman or for your religious or for economic, whatever level it may be, those stereotypes still exist. And so we have to use our voice to say that is not going to happen, that diversity is our strength, and we will not let the people of Los Angeles criticize or use stereotypes to define who we are in the city.
I just wanted to mention what is the obvious, I think, paramount interest, which is the relationship of the United States with Israel. And if there is one interest that brings all Jews together, it's that. And also, and speaking of the mayor, I was privileged to accompany him on a trip to Israel, which was of such benefit to the city of Los Angeles because of the security agreements that were signed, the environmental information that changed hands, and in so many other ways. But it was also an important trip because it sent the message of how important this relationship is between Israel and the United States. And I know that to the Persian Jewish community, it really is a paramount issue. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody thinks the same way about what this relationship would be, has to be, or how the United States should act in the Middle East. But if we don't engage, then the voices and the opinions that we have about that issue, which is, as I say, to Persian Jews, it's a very, very significant one. Then our voices, our opinions, and our experience won't even get communicated. I mean, here we are, a people that has come from a country, the leader of which has made statements such as Israel should be wiped off the map. We know things. We've experienced things. We've learned things. And we have a responsibility to communicate that experience and that knowledge to the leaders of this country. If we don't engage, then yes, we'll have these discussions around the table at Shabbat dinners. But we won't have communicated this very, very important issue and our experience and knowledge of it to the leaders of the United States. Now, you get 5 Jews around the Shabbat table, you'll have 8 opinions. That's the way it is. But as I say, but those opinions, as diverse and different as they may be, belong really at the national level of discourse in this country as well.
I had the great privilege of visiting Israel last year, and it was a wonderful experience, and I really appreciated that opportunity. And I'm going to move it more to a state level because that's where I live. But as I was moving the divestment bill through last year, I was shocked at the bitter fighting that I had to go through in order to move that bill. To me, divesting from the Islamic Republic of Iran was as clear as a bell of why it's important in the United States' best interest, Israel's best interest, and the world's best interest. And each and every committee, the California Teachers Retirement System and the Public Employees Retirement System came out and systematically attacked this. And as we moved through committee, I kept going through with more silly arguments that I had to work and meddle through. And finally, we got to the Senate. And Senator Carol Migden hit it on the head. She said it in a way that only a Jew could say it. She said, when we were divesting, and I patterned this divestment after Maxine Waters' historic divestment from South Africa over apartheid. She said, when we were divesting from apartheid, everybody was on board and nobody argued. And 2 years ago, we divested from the Sudan, and nobody had a problem with that. But now that we're talking about the genocide of 6 million Jews, if they are to get nuclear weapons and live up to what they say, we have a problem with that, and we have all sorts of these other issues. I had to take a half step back and think. As I was growing up, I never thought or saw a real issue. The issue is not just in our community. The issue is institutionalized thought that's hidden behind the veils of other issues. And I think that when we see this, we need people to step up and call it out for what it is. And had I been in the majority party, I would have called it out personally, but unfortunately I was fighting a cat and mouse game of being in the minority party trying to keep my bill alive. So I was very thankful that Carol focused in, and by the way, Tom McClintock focused in on the same point. And both of them gave him a 1-2 punch, and I thought, I wish more people in California could have seen Tom McClintock and Carol Migden on the same side going after the bad guys. So there is hope. I believe that we will move towards more respect in the future, but I do think until that point, I never believed it was alive and well, and I think that that's something that we have to remember.
So in our very few remaining minutes, I'm going to do one quick thing, which is to try and summarize. So basically, a lot of reasons for the Iranian Jewish community to be involved in local affairs. We live here. Our future depends on it. This is a democracy. And there's this great expression that ideas need wings, but also feet. We need to be part of the feet to keep our democracy, our homes healthy for ourselves and our kids. The way to engage with other immigrant communities, religious communities, other parts of the Jewish community, attack interests that are in common and pursue them together with diligence, depth, with our feet, with our money, our intellect, and our sweat. And do we still have interest? Yes. The interest of Israel, our own community, and the future. The last question is to David Nahai from the audience. David, as someone who is rapidly making your way up a ladder here in state and local politics and government, what is your opinion as to whether a Persian American Jew can get elected to a high position in federal office, in the U.S. Senate, governor, president, and what obstacles lay in the way?
Well, I would quarrel with the rapidly part of things, and with the latter. I was first appointed to a public office, I think, 11 or 12 years ago, to the Regional Water Board. So it's taken, I think, quite some time for me to learn what it means to be in public service, and I don't see myself climbing any kind of ladder. I see myself hopefully making a difference and doing some good things, especially with respect to protecting the environment. But I appreciate the sentiment of the question. absolutely a Persian Jew can be elected to office. We've already done it. Jimmy Delsha did it in Beverly Hills, and there's no reason why it shouldn't happen elsewhere. We've had a number of...
If I were to just interrupt and ask you, when? When do you think a Persian Jew will be a U.S. senator, and then when a governor, and when president? And we'll remember your answer, David.
Well, the person who will be president will have to have been born here, so I think maybe too young right now to be running for that.
There might be some here, so don't say too young.
Well, no, but they said, but in terms of when, I think right now they would be too young. But so it'll take time for this generation to grow up and mature and be in a position to run for that office. But look, certainly for local elected offices, the city council, perhaps other city councils, for school boards and other boards, for commissions, now is the time. And it'll be, once those steps are taken, then we can take the other steps towards higher offices. But there is the opportunity is here, and it's there to be taken, and the community needs to be ready to step forward and do it.
And I just want to add, I am an example of, I was the underdog when I ran my first time. I won by 225 votes out of 30,000. I was up 55 votes on election night and had to wait 10 days to know that I won. But Robin talked about walking and talking to people and meeting people and never taking no for an answer when someone says you can't do it, because you can. It doesn't matter how young you are, what your accomplishments have been, if you're committed to do that. So I just wanted to add that it's possible for any of you to become an elected official.
So this distinguished group, brave, courageous, warriors, thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our wonderful panel and moderator. Everybody's been a wonderful crowd, and it is my honor to present to you one of our last speakers for today. I'm Shirley Pokdaman. I am a proud founding member of 30 Years After Board, and it is absolutely my privilege to introduce to you our next speaker, the leader of an organization that is no stranger to our Jewish community. Through Jewish Family Services, many, many Iranian families have found their roots here and made connections and got started. Many have found jobs through Jewish Vocational Service. And many of us in the younger generation have enjoyed the benefits of participating in Hillel at our universities. All of these organizations fall under the umbrella of the Jewish Federation. Mr. John Fishel is the president of the Jewish Federation Council of Greater Los Angeles, which, through its United Jewish Fund, is the second largest fundraiser in Southern California. Nearly 500 organizations are affiliated with the Jewish Federation Council, which serves a Jewish population of approximately 650,000 people in Greater Los Angeles. Mr. Fishel joined the Federation in 1992 after serving as director of the Allied Jewish Community Services in Montreal. Previously, he served as executive director of the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, an organization that I know at least helped bring a lot of my family members from Iran, and probably yours too. And also on the Council of Migration Services in Philadelphia. Please welcome Mr. John Fishel.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I have a very pleasant and perhaps an unenviable task. I was asked to try to tie together in 3 to 5 minutes a number of things that you have heard in the last hour, which I just walked in as you were in the last 15 minutes. I'm sure. You know, as the introduction was being made and some description of the Jewish Federation, JFS or Jewish Vocational Service or let's say the Jewish Free Loan, I guess we could say Dayenu. But the Jewish Federation is really much more than the sum of its parts. And what it is an umbrella organization that really touches on aspects of Jewish life throughout the greater Los Angeles area. As was mentioned a moment ago, the second largest Jewish community in the United States. And as the representative body of LA Jewry in all its diversity, touches very, very directly the state of Israel, as well as Jewish communities around the world, including those Jews who remain in Iran. I feel somewhat of a personal privilege of having the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon because, as was mentioned in the introduction, 30 years ago, when the major migration of Jews from Iran came to the United States, I had the opportunity to be directing the highest office in Philadelphia, a small Jewish community compared to Los Angeles, but one to which many, many dozens, scores, and hundreds of Iranian Jews came, some as families and some as individuals, young adults who were being sent by their families to study in the United States as events were unfolding in Iran at the time of the revolution. And I think that it is a tribute to the Iranian Jewish community and the members of that community and the organizers of this conference 30 years after that within 3 decades so much has been accomplished. I'm not sure that any of us who had the opportunity to be on the receiving end in the late 1970s would have really visualized the tremendous strides that the members of this community have made here in LA and across the United States. The last panel addressed the issue of civic involvement, and I believe that it is certainly a goal that has been partially achieved, and there's a great deal to still do. I would like to perhaps broaden the challenge to this group. I think it's one of communal involvement, civic involvement, and involvement on behalf of Klal Yisrael. The members of this last panel addressed why it is so important to be involved in public policy. We do live in an incredibly diverse city. LA is perhaps the most multicultural city in the United States. It certainly is the most multicultural that I have ever lived in. And yet, very much like our own Jewish community, Los Angeles is very fragmented. And I think for those of you who are young, the ability to recognize that while fulfilling the needs of our own Jewish community and all its own diversity, we really do need to be engaged. It is not only because there is enormous need in a place like LA, but it's because in our own self-interest that we are engaged. This city is changing. This community is changing. It has changed enormously, even in the last 30 years. On the communal involvement end, the arrival of Jews from Iran has had a catalytic effect, in my humble judgment, on our Jewish community. I think those of you who have been here since the late 1970s, both those of you who were born here, as well as those of you who came as young children, know that sometimes it's very difficult to put your arms around a definition of community here in Los Angeles. Community means many things to many different people, and perhaps one of the goals, as yet unfulfilled, is achieving a unified and coordinated communal approach to issues of communal concern and issues of broader concern. We are indeed very fragmented. We tend to operate according to the institutions with which we affiliate, either those that are part of the broader Jewish community or those that have been created by those of you in this room. And yet, I would challenge all of us to recognize whether our ability to be successful in our civic engagement first needs to start through achieving some type of unity of purpose in our own community and to recognize that while we are working hard to educate our youth to Jewish values, to the broad concepts and traditions of Judaism, we are taking care of the poor and needy in our community, but we are also engaging ourselves on behalf of the third piece of this triangle, which is engagement on behalf of the broader Jewish people. I heard the panelists say when I walked in a few minutes ago the importance of our engagement on behalf of the State of Israel. I think some of you know that tonight, simultaneously with the closing session of this 30 Years After conference, there is a dinner on behalf of AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. And very often I have people say to me, well, you know, if we are supportive of AIPAC and advocates on behalf of Israel, that's enough. And I say, well, it's very important, but I'd like to challenge that. I'd like to challenge that thinking. I think that the support for Israel and other issues, whether they are Jews in jeopardy in Iran today, Jews in jeopardy in a small place like the Republic of Georgia that was just invaded by the Russians, where Jews were forced to flee, and where, fortunately, because we do have a Jewish state, 200 people who were refugees in the midst of an unanticipated consequence were helped to make Aliyah. I think that our engagement as a Jewish people on behalf of a broader Jewish people to assure that we have the tools to pass on to the next generation, and I think that is one of the things I would commend the members of this community, because I think you brought a true commitment to Judaism and a true commitment to Zionism that very often many members of our broader Jewish community who have been here for many generations had forgotten. I think you've helped us to jumpstart that commitment to Zionism. I think you've helped us to generate more commitment within the broader community to pass on those values. But again, when people say, well, I'm involved because I'm politically involved, I'd like to remind them that those who do indeed aspire to elected office, those who achieve elective office, very often start in organizations like those of you who are here in the conference today, 30 years after. You start as active members of your congregation. You start as active members of the institutions that you support here in Los Angeles. Your community organizers, regrettably an expression that got a knock the other day during the ongoing debate in the present presidential campaign. But I think that we are fortunate here in LA and fortunate at the Jewish Federation as we have seen more members of the Iranian community step forward, proud of their own heritage, not forgetting the need to do for their own community, but to engage themselves in the Jewish Federation and other institutions of the broader Jewish community. We have been enhanced in our ability to achieve, and I believe that today's conference is just another step in fulfilling that achievement. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Hi, my name is Natalie Kashefi, and I'm a board member of 30 Years After. I'd like to invite Ronan Hordipour and Josephine Merzadeh to say a few words about their groundbreaking role as leaders of the New York chapter of 30 Years After.
30 years after an Iranian Jewish diaspora was created in the United States, our community remained divided between Los Angeles and New York.
And today, that division will come to an end. We are proud to announce the official launch of 30 Years After's New York chapter. With our first event next Sunday, Saturday, September 21st, we encourage all of you to invite your family members and friends as our guests.
From coast to coast, we hope to collaborate on issues of national political importance to our community. We are the internet generation, And we plan to host joint video conferencing events as well as collaborate regularly on Facebook.
Bridging our land-divided community is critical. As first-generation Iranian Americans, we lead parallel lives with the same pertinent concerns and interests. Now we have the opportunity to nurture, parvarish, and preserve negardari of 2,700 years of ancestry and heritage. Most importantly, we should serve as each other's models in leading Iranian Jewish life, united, ba hambastagi. New York for LA, and LA for New York. On behalf of ourselves and the entire board, we would like to thank the LA board for their support and hard work in making this bridge viable. Thank you.
I want to thank our panelists and moderator for that engaging discussion. Our community is blessed with many fascinating and powerful organizations that are dedicated to the advancement of Jewish life. One of the goals of this conference was to provide you with the opportunity to get involved. To this end, we'd like to invite all of you to the Beverly Hills Ballroom for our sponsor organization reception. We encourage you to visit the sponsor exhibits to learn more about these organizations and explore opportunities to work with them. Rabbi David Wolpe will also be signing his newest book entitled Why Faith Matters in the Ballroom. Please note that doors open at 7 p.m. for our gala dinner, and the program will begin promptly at 7:30 p.m. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We ask you to proceed to the Beverly Hills Ballroom for the reception.
Years after, headed by visionary Sam Yebri, has grown into what was just a mere idea to a reality of 40 Iranian Jewish young professionals joining forces for a common goal in mind of advancing the community's expansion into American civic and Jewish communal life through various events and cutting-edge programs, including Jewish Big Brothers Big Sisters mentorship program for high school students, as well as today's Civic Action Conference. Recently, 30 Years After has spanned 3,000 miles and opened its doors towards creating a New York chapter. Albeit miles away from one another, these two chapters will coexist side by side to reunite a community that was dispelled nearly 30 years ago. We hope you have thus far enjoyed this compelling conference, as we have a great program in line for you tonight. At this moment, I'd like to ask you all to please rise and join us in the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner and the Hatikva. Please join me in welcoming my sister, Nicole Farnoosh.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous flight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly sing, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Please join me in the singing of the Hatikva. Kolot baleva penima nefesh Yehudi homiya ulfat mizra kadima ain letzion Sophia Olat vatikvateinu Hatikva bat shnot hapayim liyom hachofshi be'atzenu Eretz Zion ve'Yerushalayim liyotam chofshi be'atzenu Eretz Zion
Thank you, Nicole. Next, I'd like to welcome a local Iranian Jewish activist and founder of the Jewish Unity Network and youth mentor, whom throughout the years has been involved in hands-on efforts to help local young people and publicly address pressing issues in the community. Having recently been regarded as one of the Jewish Journal's mensches, he is a true hero in our community. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Dara Abai, who will be reciting the Hamotzi for us tonight.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Persian Jewish community was awakened with two recent unfortunate incidents, starting from Bianca Khalili passing away to loss of Danny Levion. Throughout these tragedies, the Persian Jewish community has united as a whole. And in the loving memory of Professor Netzer, I would like to please ask everyone to have a moment of silence and personal prayer on behalf of Professor Netzer, Bianca Khalili, and Danny Levion's souls. Thank you. I'm sure everyone here of the movie called Back to Future. If you haven't, I advise you all to watch it someday. It's a nice movie. It's unbelievable how the movie resembles 30 years after. Just as the movie is based on past and future events, so does 30 years after. When I was sitting and had a meeting with Sam Irby, I was wondering about the title, 30 Years After. And I have come to realize how much it really means to me. On a personal note, I was only 10 years old when the Islamic Revolution happened. Now it is 30 years after, which makes me 40. "30 years after will hit someone's age one day or another. I'm very emotional tonight to see none of the members of 30 years after over 30 years old. It's amazing. They are the leaders of a community, they are future of a community, and I'll say always, and what I believe, empowering tomorrow leaders. Thank you. باروخ اتى ادوناي الوهين ملك العالم اشق نشان سوسيوانو ال نتلا يا دائم انا كل اللي خايس برمت من بيتو بوتيخ ادياده خو مسبيا لخل خيراتون كيتوب كيلولام خستو باروخ اتى ادوناي الوهين ملك العالم هم مسل خم مين هارت.
Thank you, Dad.
Thank you very much.
Friends, colleagues, and distinguished guests, my name is Jonathan Delshad, and I am a proud member and co-founder of 30 Years After. I'd like to first take this opportunity to recognize a few local officials in attendance tonight. I believe we have Councilmember Dennis Zine, candidates for Los Angeles City Council Paul Koretz, Ron Galpern, and Adina Bleish, and candidate for State Assembly Bob Blumenfeld. Today's conference has truly been a community-wide event. And if we look around, we've had over 40 board members of 30 years after that have helped us out tonight. I would like to take this opportunity right now to have everybody who's been involved with 30 Years After from the beginnings till now, please stand up and be recognized. If we get the house lights on. please take a look around and look how many people are here because of your efforts. Soak it all in and enjoy it. Over 40 businesses and organizations have come together today in order to make this event and this organization a success. One organization, however, made a commitment to 30 years after, for which we will be forever grateful. That organization is the Jewish Community Foundation of Los Angeles, whose name has been up on this building, on this plaque the whole time. The foundation is the largest manager of charitable assets for Southern California's Jewish philanthropists. The foundation plays an active community leadership role, and through its cutting-edge grant serves as a catalyst for new and innovative projects which serve to strengthen and enhance the Jewish community of Los Angeles. The foundation awarded us this grant when our organization was still in its infancy. We approached the foundation with an idea which we believe would not only strengthen the Iranian Jewish community, but also strengthen the Los Angeles Jewish community as a whole. At that time, we had a vision, but almost no funding and very little support. But the foundation believed in us. The foundation believed in our mission, they believed in our leadership, and they believed in the Iranian Jewish community. This year, through the Cutting Edge Grant Program, the foundation awarded 30 years after a significant amount of money to help support us over the course of the next 3 years. Without this support, today would not be possible. More importantly, their gift came with an invaluable time commitment from visionaries who provided us with vital oversight, leadership, and guidance. Funding provided by the foundation has made it possible for many upstart Jewish organizations, just like 30 years after, to take shape and strengthen the Jewish community. The foundation's work is instrumental in securing the future of Los Angeles Jewish community. I urge all of you to learn more about the foundation and provide them with the support they need in order to continue making organizations like 30 years after become a reality. To speak on behalf of the foundation, I have the privilege of introducing Dan Rothblatt, who is the Executive Vice President of the Jewish Community Foundation of Los Angeles. His dedication to serving the cause of strengthening the Los Angeles Jewish community is something that every single one of us should be grateful for. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Dan Rothblatt.
Congratulations to 30 years after on hosting such a remarkable event as this conference. Looking around the room and seeing all the numerous conference participants and having the opportunity to be with such distinguished leaders of our community, a person cannot help but be inspired by the dramatic accomplishments of 30 years after. We at the Jewish Community Foundation certainly admire the efforts of 30 years after to help build and strengthen the Iranian American Jewish community and engage this remarkable community into American political life and civil life. This is precisely what the Jewish Community Foundation is all about, building and strengthening our community. We're proud to have been doing it for 54 years. When 30 years after approached the Jewish Community Foundation back in 2007, seeking funding support of this initiative, we were intrigued by what they were trying to accomplish, intrigued by the energy, vigor, focus of the organization, and intrigued by the people behind the organization. And the more we learned about the mission of 30 years after and how they plan to accomplish it, the more excited we got about providing seed funding to help get this important initiative off the ground. Community activism is the door to success for the Jewish community, and you are definitely unlocking that door through this conference and the other important work of 30 years after. We are so delighted and proud to be a key partner of 30 years after in this endeavor. May you continue to go from strength to strength.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam Yebri, co-founder and president of 30 Years After. I've been thinking about this speech for over 2 years, from the very inception of the idea for 30 Years After and this conference. It all goes back to the height of the Lebanon War during the fateful summer of 2006. We all remember those days. I vividly remember rushing to find my friend Johnny Yagubzadeh during our breaks as we took the California bar exam to brief each other about the newest reports from the front. I remember watching in synagogue as young leaders like Rona Ram and others would passionately fundraise for the beleaguered residents of northern Israel. And I remember the special prayers that Iman Esmailzadeh and others in our community would share at Shabbat dinners to commemorate the sacrifices of our brothers and sisters in Israel during that difficult time. I remember thinking to myself, there's truly something special about our community. Yet in drafting this speech, the same big ideas came to my mind: Zionism and Tikkun Olam, the Islamic Revolution and the American Dream. But the nation's leading rabbis will and already have told you that we as Jews have certain obligations to other Jews and to those in need. Foreign policy experts from around the world have already told us about the plight of Jews in Iran and the threat that that nation poses to the entire world. And leading national politicians will tell you about the value of public service. And they will emphasize that in America, these issues and other issues that we care about are addressed through the political process. So for my part, I wanted to share something that had yet to be expressed tonight. I'm going to tell you why 40 colleagues and I have spent thousands of hours over the last 2 years to plan and implement this conference. Sure, it's about Zionism and Tikkun Olam, about our Iranian heritage and our achieving the American dream. But fundamentally, we have gotten more out of this than we have put in. The 40 of us, the ones who pulled late nights, including all-nighters this week, are happier and more fulfilled human beings for the time we've put in. We undertook an endeavor that on its face was not feasible. We were told that a handful of young professionals cannot find the support to host a major conference. We did. We were told that you cannot find partners in the greater American Jewish community, equal partners, to help you achieve your seemingly Iranian-centric goals. We have found those partners. And we were told no one would come. You are here. And through it all, my team and I put community first. We brought together 40 different Jewish organizations in one room, in one day, so that the passion of these leaders and their volunteers could infect us all. For example, the leaders of the organization ARM called us on Friday, right before Shabbat, and asked us for a booth to help promote awareness about the debilitating disease, HIBM. We made room and accommodated them because it was the right thing to do. We developed a mentorship program in partnership with Jewish Big Brothers and Nesach Synagogue, in which Iranian Jewish high school students are matched with Iranian Jewish young professionals. And we did this because we know that one mentor or one friend or even one conversation can change a life. we've registered nearly 1,000 new Iranian Jewish voters because we know we are giving voice. Because we know we are giving voice to the next generation of civic leaders in Los Angeles, and the entire city stands to benefit from their involvement. And by developing more partnerships and programs, 30 years after we'll continue to educate, inspire, and empower our entire community. So as we look forward to our upcoming events and our next conference in 2 years, we are looking for leaders. And I hope that right now, someone in the back of this room is writing her speech for our conference in 2 years. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Diana Cohenzad, and I'm a co-founder of 30 Years After. Every Saturday morning at 11 a.m., the doors of the main sanctuary of Sinai Temple closes, and one voice holds the attention of an entire congregation. That voice belongs to Rabbi David Wolpe. Each week, the congregation gathers to not only hear the parashah of the week, but to also find answers to questions posed by current events. Rabbi Wolpe seamlessly weaves together the lessons we hold so dear from the Torah with the modern-day world. He is able to do this because he has an unparalleled thirst for knowledge and inspires each of us to improve ourselves, educate others, and become better people, which is exactly why we are here today. We are here to join together, become educated, and effect change. We are fortunate to have individuals like Rabbi Wolpe with us at this conference to lead the way. Rabbi Wolpe motivates the community to get involved and take action. I personally experienced this in Washington, D.C., when I witnessed him take the largest delegation ever assembled from any synagogue to the AIPAC Policy Conference this past June. I have attended the conference with my family for the past 5 years. But attending with Rabbi Wolpe showed me the influence one individual can have on an entire community. He leads by example. He has also led 3 separate missions to Israel, one of which was a mission of gratitude to bring home a Torah that was commissioned in his honor. It is no wonder that Rabbi Wolpe was named #1 pulpit rabbi in America by Newsweek magazine, and one of the most influential Angelenos by Los Angeles magazine. He writes for many publications, including regular columns for the New York Jewish Week, BeliefNet.com, as well as periodic contributions to the Jerusalem Post, the Los Angeles Times, and many others, thus sharing his voice well beyond the walls of Sinai Temple. Rabbi Wolpe is the author of 7 books, several of which are bestsellers. His newest book, Why Faith Matters, coming out this Tuesday, is critical for our modern-day world. During a time when people are questioning religion, Rabbi Wolpe offers us a case for faith and the value it brings to our lives. By sharing his own life experiences, he offers us a moving statement for the place of God. Reading this book will enhance our lives as Jews in today's world, and I encourage all of you to purchase a copy. In fact, you can outside tonight. I know many of us are here today because we are inspired by Rabbi Wolpe's vision and voice. I am honored to introduce him to you today. Ladies and gentlemen, Rabbi David Wolpe.
Thank you for that beautiful and kind introduction. I have had the opportunity to be close to many of you, and so I want to begin with a personal quality that I urge on you, and then tell you 3 short stories. As you know, and as Diane alluded to, part of anybody's lesson in this world is their own story. We can only see the world, as a sage once said, with our own eyes. And as you know, in the past several years, I've had a series of challenges to my health, a brain tumor, lymphoma, and chemotherapy. And through it all, one of the things that I've learned is not only the enormous importance of community, but as I saw other people, because, you know, when you're sick, you draw the stories of other people who are sick, and you share stories together. It convinced me of something that I learned many years ago, which is the single most important quality to lead a good life. And I'm going to give you a second. You can answer that for yourselves. What is the single most important quality? I'll offer my thought, which is that it is courage. Because without courage, you can't be yourself. Without courage, you can't be different from the people around you. Without courage, you hide and you flee. The Jewish community remained the Jewish community because it had the courage to be different from the communities around it. It was difficult, sometimes painful, sometimes tragic to be different. But courage is the quality of knowing that what you are is valuable and not being willing to destroy it, to bend it, to let it float away because people around you don't like it or don't support it. So the first thing that I would say to a community as you are that is caught between so many different worlds and so many different pressures is that in the course of discovering what is your central mission and your essential identity, always remember that that discovery has to be accompanied by the courage to maintain it once you know who you are, and that you wouldn't be here 30 years after if the people who preceded you hadn't shown that courage for many, many generations, and you won't be here 30 years from now unless all of us show it together. Okay, enough sermons, now stories. I have 3 stories, each of which illustrates, I think, something that especially those of you who weren't here 30 years ago, but all of us, I think, should keep in mind. One story is from Jerusalem, one from Los Angeles, and then I'm going to close with one from my roots, which is Eastern Europe. A friend of mine in Jerusalem decided he wanted to study with a very famous mystic who taught a class there. And so you had to be invited to this class, and a member of the class invited him, and he came in the first day of the class, and the teacher walked over to him as he did, this was apparently a ritual, with everyone who entered the class, and he held out an apple. So my friend grabbed for it, and the teacher pulled it away. And he held out the apple again. And this time he sort of slowly grabbed for it. And again the teacher pulled it away. And by now my friend was completely bewildered. And he looked at someone in the class who showed him what to do. This time the teacher held out the apple, and he put his hands like this. And he dropped it into his hands. part of what talented, gifted, smart people have to learn to do is not just to get, but also to receive. One of the perils of being smart is that smart people tend to move too quickly, and they miss some of the life lessons that people who are older have to give. And I want to suggest to you that along the way, you periodically adopt this posture, because there will be people who may not be as smart as you, and may not be as gifted as you, and may not be as wealthy as you, and may not be as resourceful as you, but they know things you don't know yet. And a certain essential humility of soul will help you become everything not only that you could be, but that you should be, but that you won't be if you move too fast and don't listen well. And that brings me to the second story. And this story happened right here in Los Angeles, I don't know, about 15 years ago or so. What happened was that one night, in the middle of the night, at 6505, the Jewish Federation building, a call came into the switchboard. And the voice at the other end of the line was a little girl. And she said, "My daddy fell down and he's not moving. We need help." So the operator at the switchboard did what she was told to do in an emergency. First, she called 911, and then she called President of Federation. And what happened was the ambulance came, and they got the guy, and they took him to the hospital, and he started to recover, and he turned out to be all right. And of course, in the course of sitting with this little girl, the President of Federation said to her, "Why'd you call the Federation?" And she said, "Because we're Russian immigrants. And we don't know anyone in this town. And when we first came, my daddy wrote a number and stuck it up on the refrigerator. And he said, if anything bad ever happens, call this number. It's the Jewish building. They'll help you." That's who we are. That's who we are supposed to be. We're supposed to be the ones that learn how to help. And not only, by the way, because other people need it, but because we need it. One of the things that you discover by living where all of us live is that wealth doesn't make you happy. There are wealthy people who are happy and wealthy people who are miserable. You don't have to applaud that, but you just have to know it's true. Look, it's not just wealth. We live in a place where people have everything that other people assume they want: wealth, fame, power, influence. And there are people in this city, in this room, in our world, who have all of those things, and they're miserable. So if some people have wealth and are happy, and other people have wealth and are miserable, what does this tell you? Wealth is not the key variable. Being wealthy won't make you happy. Rather, it has something to do with what is inside of you. It has to do with qualities of spirit, of goodness, of God. And that is part of the reason why we create a community to help others. Not only because it is essential for the fixing of the world, but it's essential for the fixing of our own souls. And everybody, for example, who put this conference together will tell you that as wonderful as it is for you, you have no idea what it did for them. The same thing is true of everybody who gives in truth. I've never heard anybody say to me, you know, the one thing I regret is that charitable contribution. Just wish I hadn't done that. The act of giving to our community, to others beyond our community, to Israel, that very act changes you. We're building an Israel center at the synagogue. And we're doing it for Israel, but the truth is we're doing it for the synagogue. Because we know that the activity when we went to Israel and we gave millions of dollars, many of those dollars, by the way, from the Iranian community to victims of terror, and they thanked us, we felt ashamed. Because the truth is, it was more powerful for us than for the people whom we helped. And what we have to know is there is no guilt involved in being lucky. You should be glad you're lucky. We are, after all, the luckiest people who have ever lived. Right? If you look in terms of human history, we're like in the 99.8th percentile. Or actually, the Beverly Hills, 99.9. Right? And that's a wonderful thing, and it shouldn't make us feel bad, but it should make us feel responsible, which brings me to my third and final story. This story is a story of the late Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, who was, as you may know, the sort of singing minstrel of the Jewish world. He used to go around the world and he would teach people songs. And he would teach them new melodies for prayer. And community after community after community was enchanted by this rabbi. And he used to tell the story that once, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, he went to a small town. And in this town, everybody, either literally or metaphorically, closed the door in his face. Except for one guy. There is always in such stories, right? One guy. So there was one guy. And this one guy was opened his door to him and was welcoming and was warm and was embracing. And he spent Shabbat with him. And when Shabbat was over, Carlebach said, I have to ask you a question. He said, look, I understand the rest of the town. I know that after all the terrible suffering they went through, first in the Second World War with Nazism, and then under the jackboot of communism, and the starvation and the cold, I know why they don't want this singing rabbi from the West. Them I understand, he said. The one I don't understand is you. Why are you so different? Why are you so open? Why are you so warm? Why can you express love? And the man said to him, I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you exactly when it happened. Look, he said, I am an old man. And I've lived in this little town my entire life. And I remember once, long ago, before the First World War, a rumor swept through the town in the middle of winter as the snow fell that the Cossacks were coming and that they were going to sweep through the town and they would loot and pillage and burn and destroy. So all the parents from the town gathered up all the children and they brought us to the rabbi's house. And there, in the middle of the night, we all lay down in the rabbi's kitchen and his study, and all night long he walked among the children, watching out over us. It was the middle of the night, and we were all pretending to sleep, but I know I couldn't sleep. It was too cold. And I was huddled up in a corner of the rabbi's study, and I was shivering. And he came up from behind me, thinking I was sleeping, and he took his cloak off of his shoulders, and he spread it over me, and he said, "Good child, sweet child." You know, the man said to Carlebach, it has been 75 years since the rabbi spread his coat on me, but it still keeps me warm. This is what I want you to know. You don't realize your own power. A word that you say, a gesture that you make, a kindness, a contribution, can change someone's life even if you never know. That rabbi probably never knew that he changed that child's life. And you've been given such enormous influence, such tremendous potential to change the lives not only of the people around you, but far beyond this community, far beyond this city. That I remind you that each of you was given a coat, and that with it you really can make someone else warm. And what you have to do is turn your gifts into blessings. That you have gifts, no one can doubt. Yours is an astonishing community. But gifts don't always translate to blessings. So that really is my prayer for all of you, but especially for those of you who are starting on your way. I pray that your gifts will become blessings for you, for our community, for our people, and for the world. It may sound grand, but it is possible. And through your efforts, I know, with God's help, with the wisdom of our tradition and the support of those around us, we can spread our cloak over this world and make it a little warmer. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now invite you to enjoy your dinner entree.
Good evening. I am Ray Zolakayan, and I'm one of the co-founders of 30 Years After. First of all, I would like to once again personally thank our friends at the Jewish Community Foundation. Without your support, this conference would not have been possible. I would also like to give a special thanks on behalf of the entire board to all of our parents who have instilled in us the Jewish values and showed us the importance of giving back to our community that inspired all of us to begin this organization. Tonight's conference is the culmination of tremendous efforts that have been nearly 2 years in the making. But more importantly, tonight is the beginning of something greater, something that has been 30 years in the making. As we look around this hall, we see nearly 1,000 members of our community coming together to say that we care. We care about strengthening the Jewish community. We care about the direction that this great country is headed. We care about securing a peaceful future for the state of Israel. This conference and this organization hope to provide all of us with the knowledge, the tools, and the access to allow us to shape the future of these issues that we all care so much about. Take this opportunity to build on the foundation of knowledge you now have. Learn about the issues that affect our lives and the lives of our brothers and sisters in Israel. Vote this November to ensure that our voices are heard. Get involved with the many great organizations that have joined us today and do your part to ensure that our Jewish community remains eternally vibrant. The success of this conference will be measured not by how many people attended today, rather by how many of us go on to make a difference tomorrow. Our next speaker strives to make a difference every day. Congressman Adam Schiff has represented California's 29th Congressional District since 2001. His district includes Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena. Congressman Schiff is currently a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, which has oversight authority over the nation's intelligence services. In 2007, Congressman Schiff was appointed to be a member of the prominent House Appropriations Committee. Being responsible for setting all funding expenditures for the federal government, the House Appropriations Committee is often recognized as the most powerful and influential committee in Congress. Prior to serving in the House of Representatives, Congressman Schiff served as a California state senator and as a U.S. attorney, most notably prosecuting the first FBI agent ever to be indicted for espionage. It is our great honor and distinct pleasure to have with us this evening Congressman Adam Schiff.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to join you this evening, and I want to begin by congratulating the founders of 30 Years After for the tremendous success of the conference, and you can see the success right here tonight with the extraordinary attendance this evening. So congratulations on all the hard work to make it possible. I'm really, yes, please. I'm particularly delighted to have a chance to speak to you because I was excluded from a group in Congress with a name that bears some resemblance, and that's the 30-somethings. There's a group of members of Congress that are in their 30s that are organized, that take to the House floor together, and as I am a 40-something, they have barred my admittance. And I will lord it over them that I got to speak to 30 years after, and I'm not even a 30-something. But I can certainly tell that the success of this evening is attributable to the youth and the energy and the passion of the young Iranian Jewish community here in Los Angeles, and it's a tribute to all of their hard work. So congratulations again. I want to talk briefly tonight about two of the greatest challenges facing the United States. And you might imagine that I'm speaking about Iraq and Afghanistan, and indeed, those are two extraordinary challenges facing the country. But no less difficult, in some respects and in the long term, perhaps even more significant, are the challenges faced by two other countries, Iran and Pakistan. They are two of the most dangerous places on earth, two places of extraordinary peril, and two places that, to a large extent, may determine our security and our future, as well as the regions in which they lie. As my time is limited tonight, we won't be able to discuss Pakistan, but I will endeavor to take a few minutes to discuss the challenge posed by Iran. If you look at the course of the last several years, they have not been positive in terms of our efforts to contain the threat posed by Iran. Iran now has thousands of centrifuges, perhaps as many as 4,000. It has up to 150 kilograms of low-enriched uranium. It has been strengthened, tragically, by the war in Iraq. Its presence and support of Hezbollah is stronger than ever. Its influence in the region is more pervasive than ever. And I think we have to be clear-eyed about the challenge posed by Iran. The idea of a nuclear Iran is completely unacceptable. It would risk setting off a nuclear arms race in the region and directly threaten many of its neighbors, as well as the United States. This is a country, after all, that has threatened to wipe Israel off the map, whose president speaks words of denial regarding the Holocaust. It's hard to imagine a graver threat to that region or the security of the world. But the present approach has not been successful. What we have tried has resulted in years of growth of the Iranian nuclear program, has resulted in growth of the missile capability of Hezbollah, as we saw so recently and so tragically. And so what are our alternatives to the present course? There are several, but they're none of them easy, none of them all that inviting. There is, of course, the option of using military force. And I don't need to set out tonight how perilous that course may be. When we consider the challenges that we faced in Iraq, the difficulty that has been exposed to our troops, we can only imagine that a conflict with Iran would be Iraq multiplied. And yet, if the military option is not very inviting, if the difficulty of locating Iran's nuclear facilities is exacerbated by years of having time to bury them in the sand, spread them out, if our intelligence with respect to Iran is probably poorer than our intelligence was with respect to Iraq, and we saw how poor that was, what is the alternative? Well, I think there are a couple alternatives. One very specifically is to have a level of engagement with Iran, a level of tough diplomacy and direct diplomacy that we haven't had in the past. There is no guarantee that this approach would succeed, but I think it's fair to say, after the last several years, that the current track is not working. We have, as you know, outsourced our contacts with Iran to our European friends. And the quartet has been unsuccessful in containing Iraq's nuclear program. And why is that? Why have they been unsuccessful? Why would we be any more successful in dealing with Iran than the European nations have been? And I think the answer is simple. Iran doesn't fear our European friends. There's very little that Iran wants from our European friends. And any deal or accommodation or negotiation with our European friends will not bring about the desired outcome in Iran, will not turn back its nuclear program, and has not. And so we have one alternative, and that is to embark on a course of more direct and strong diplomacy, a set of carrots and sticks, with no guarantee that this approach will work either. But I believe that it is possible, with strong leadership, to bring together our allies around the world, to use all of our diplomatic, economic, and other leverage to compel really strong sanctions against Iran, to offer incentives, because that's necessary too. But without the world acting in unison, it will be enormously difficult, if not impossible, to turn Iran's nuclear ambitions back. That, I think, is possible. I'm not here tonight to say that this is something we can definitely accomplish. But as the alternatives are so unpalatable, as military action and its consequences are so unfathomable, as the prospect of nuclear Iran is so unacceptable, I think we have to make every last-ditch effort to allow diplomacy to succeed, as I think it can, if the United States uses all of its might and all of its leverage and all of its talent and intellect and capability to marshal the international community to stop Iran. But there is a second course that I think we have to take as well. And this is an issue that is front and center of all of our discussions in Congress right now. And that is, we have to do something radically different about energy. As you've been following, we've had a great debate going on in Congress about what our energy future ought to be. Should we emphasize drilling? Should we emphasize renewable energy? Is it some combination of all of the above? Where does our energy future lie, and how does it affect our national security? There's probably no single issue in the mid and long term that will have a greater impact on Iran than what we decide about energy. And I think as we answer the question of where we ought to head as a nation in terms of our energy future, one of the things that's instructive to ask is, what do our adversaries want? What does Iran want? If we were going to do what Iran wants, what would we do about energy? If we were going to do what Russia wanted, Russia becoming the bully of Eastern Europe, what would Russia want? If we were going to do what Venezuela wanted, the bully to our south, what would we do? I think if you asked the presidents of those countries, I think if you sat in as a fly on the wall of the discussion of the mullahs in Iran, they would say, drill, baby, drill. They would be delighted by the idea that America has decided that its energy future is a continued reliance on fossil fuels, of which no matter how much drilling we do, we have only a limited reservoir. We have 3% of the world's oil supply. We're 25% of the world's demand. Those numbers don't add up. They will never add up, no matter how many derricks we build. What scares the mullahs in Iran, what terrifies the Hugo Chavez of the world, and the Putins, and the Medyevs, is the idea that we will radically change the energy dynamic, that we will throw ourselves in a new Manhattan Project to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels, that we will make the resource beneath their sand, if not worthless, worth a fraction of what it costs now. If we can do that, how can Iran muster the resources to rebuild Lebanon after its proxy to Hezbollah provokes a war with Israel? It can't. How can Iran continue to fund Hezbollah as it acquires missiles to attack Israel? It can't. How can Iran continue its nuclear program at the cost of international sanctions? It can't, if what they have beneath their sand is worth a fraction of what it's worth today. Every time Ahmadinejad shoots off his mouth, the price of oil goes up. Every provocation, every statement he makes, the price of oil goes up. But we have in our power to alter that dynamic and change radically that ability. I don't need to tell you what Iran's greatest resource is. You know it better than anyone. You know it from your parents and your grandparents. Iran's greatest resource are the Iranian people. Now, the mullahs don't know that. They think oil is their greatest resource. But they have tremendous numbers of unemployed. They have a young demographic in Iran that is very wired to the rest of the world, that knows what's out there, knows what they have at home and doesn't like it, wants something different. And the only way they can keep that combustible mix, the only way they can keep that restive population in check and keep the mullahs in power is by buying them off with their oil money, with their petroleum money, with their natural gas money. Take that away from them, and they will have to tap their real resource, and that is the Iranian people. Take that away from them, and they will have to make a radical adjustment to their domestic policy, to their international policy, to their nuclear program, to their support for terrorism and everything else. This, I think, is the most powerful tool we have to dealing with Iran. This is, I think, energy, the preeminent national security challenge of our time, economic challenge, environmental challenge, health challenge. If we get it right, it is a winner across every level. If we get it wrong, and I have to say, in my view, we've been getting it wrong for a long time, we can expect more of the same, which in the case of Iran means greater influence, greater ability to fund terrorism, a greater threat to Israel and the rest of the world. So these, I think, are some of the choices we have to make. But I think, at the end of the day, because I like to look always at the glass half full, I think the encouraging thing buried within the peril that is Iran are those young people. I think those young people one day will have the power and the influence they need to topple that regime and to return Iran to its former greatness. And I think we need to do what we can to strengthen their hand and be very careful not to strengthen the hand of the mullahs as we have been doing. So I look at the glass half empty. I think we do all we can to support the promise of Iran, to ensure that their government taps the enormous potential in Iran. And I'll end with one anecdote. I co-chair a national security group in the Congress among the Democrats, and we invite speakers to come visit with us. And I'll have to use a little off-color language in this anecdote, but we're all, I think, over the age that I can get away with that. And I invited Mark Bowden to come in and speak to us. He wrote To Black Hawk Down, Killing Pablo, and his most recent work was Guest of the Ayatollah about the Iranian hostage crisis. And he had been to Iran researching his book, and he told me how he stood out as an American in Tehran, as you can imagine. And an Iranian driver was escorting him around, and at one point, they stopped in front of a billboard of the Ayatollah Khomeini. And Mark said, "Would you stop the car? I'd like to get out and take a picture in front of the billboard." And so he got out of the car, and the Iranian driver took his camera and was putting it in focus as Mark stood there. And a young Iranian came driving by as he was standing in front of the billboard posing. And this young Iranian, I think speaking for an entire generation perhaps, yelled out the window to Mark, "What do you want your picture taken with that asshole for?" And I have to say, I was encouraged by that question, because it said to me, there are a whole host of young people in Iran who are the future of that country, who know what they have and don't like it, who want something different, who are looking to us to support them, and in their hands lie the future. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Good evening. My name is Alham Maccabi, and as one of the only board member of 30 years after, who spent the first 14 years of her life in Iran, I would like to say a quick thank you in Farsi. حضار محترم خانم ها و آقایان، از تشریف فرمایی و حمایت شما بسیار سپاسگزاریم. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you one of the very key people who has, from the very first day, has been a big support to our organization. Mr. George Harunian has blessed us with his continuous kindness and support from day one. Whether it was putting us in touch with the right people to spontaneously getting on the stage and giving a speech about us, he's always been there for us. Now it's time to return a favor. Since arriving in the United States from Iran in 1970, Mr. Harunian has been one of the most influential leaders of the Iranian Jewish community. After the Islamic Revolution, Mr. Harunian helped the foundation of Iranian Jewish Young Adult Organization to assist with resettlement and acculturation of the new arrivals in the U.S. Since then, he has been a very active member of many organizations within our community, such as serving as the president of the Council of Iranian American Jewish Organization and as a board member of the Nesa Israel Hebrew Academy and Iranian Jewish Association. Please join me in welcoming Mr. George Harunian.
Good evening, Erev Tov, Shab Becher. Many thanks to Elham for your kind words. I would like to dedicate this speech to the memory of a giant of a man that we lost in February of this year, the late Professor Amnon Netzer, Zichrono Livracha, who was aptly called the godfather of research in Iranian Jewish history. Although he's not here, he's here with us in spirit. And I know if he was alive, he would have been one of the speakers definitely tonight. My appreciation to the organizers of the conference for giving me the opportunity at this part of the program to say a few words, and the honor to introduce to you our keynote speaker. I salute these young men and women who have found and led 30 years after, and who have worked tirelessly in planning and making this historical event happen. I call it historical and I call it a turning point in our community's history. Today, September 15, 2008, will be remembered in future as a turning point. And also, it's my dear wife's birthday, so I will definitely remember it tonight. I congratulate your proud parents and your families who guided you and, as Raymond said, ingrained into you the love of community and the love of your people. I am, in fact, congratulating our own community for having these young men and women as our members. Tonight, we are all more proud and we stand taller for being members of this Iranian American Jewish community. We are proud of our Iranian as well as Jewish heritage, a unique combination with 2,700 years of history. And yes, we are grateful to this great country for the freedom and opportunity it has afforded us to exercise our right as free and responsible human beings. May God bless the United States of America. Dear friends, today, as we have witnessed throughout this conference, the recent past and some of the current concerns facing our community were discussed. Experiences were shared about how we dealt with our challenges, and opinions were expressed about how to plan for a better future. I'm quite certain, as we were learning about the trials and tribulations of this newly arrived community and about our triumphs and sometimes losses, those who have taken a glimpse at the history of Jewish people agree with me that this past 30 years may seem like a script copied from an old one, but with some changes and specific differences. Just like making of an old classic movie made with special effects and different actors for the audience who have not seen the older movie yet. Ladies and gentlemen, the past 30 years have been but a short chapter in the 3,500 years history of the Jewish people. It does not matter if you are a student of the Torah and Talmud and their ageless wisdom in explaining societal or political issues. You may have a much different lens and you look at the world and what happens in societies in a different way. You may think history of mankind and changes in society is indeed the struggle for human freedom and dignity. And you may explain the changes in the world through political systems and different economic systems. You may be a Jew who cares about your Jewishness and continuity of your people, or you may think that being a Jew is just like being a member of another ethnic community. You may be a non-Jew who is simply interested in the Jewish people and its issues. No matter which group that I mentioned here you consider yourself, you would certainly agree that the question of Jewish survival, or I think better said, the survival of the Jews throughout human history, is one of the most fascinating topics and puzzles. How have a people small in numbers survived facing enemies and challenges in every generation for 35 centuries? Some think it is our unity. And those who, like me, have worked in community affairs know how wrong that belief could be. at least not always. Some think that we have a knack for survival. I disagree. Some think that we are very shrewd people. And I really don't think wisdom and smartness is an exclusive asset of the Jews. Those of us who are observant would say it is our Torah and our trust in Hashem, God, who has maintained us more than anything else. We are here to show the world how to be an ethical person and make it a better world. We are supposed to be the witnesses and proof of triumph of good over evil. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you what I think is the answer to the survival of the Jews. The word is our memory, our national memory. We are a people who remember and never forget where we came from. Look at our prayers. 3 times a day, we remember Jerusalem. Look at Passover Seder and the Haggadah. We recite every year the story of our freedom from bondage. We eat the maror, the bitter herb, to remember the hard times in Egypt. We read the Purim Megillah, and we remember Haman, who planned to destroy us in Persia, but was hung in the gallows by order of the powerful king before he could do any harm to us. In a Jewish marriage ceremony where we are supposed to be the happiest, we break the glass as a symbol and remember Jerusalem and say, if I forget thee, Jerusalem, is as if my right hand have forgotten me. And we mourn every year on 9th of the Av, remembering the destruction of our holy temple. It is our national memory and lessons we learn from history that has sustained us. That is the secret why Jews have survived and will survive. Jewish survival is the proof that people who remembers its past has a future, and those who forget it have no future. Now, it is the case that not everyone learns the same lessons from history. And as the saying goes, history repeats itself because some of us do not learn. In the early months of the 1999, there were a few of us in the community who, upon learning about the arrest of large number of our community leaders and brothers in Iran, decided that the time to be quiet was no more. Here was a regime that had no regards for human rights, its ideology based on treating Jews and other non-Shias as second-class citizens, and its court system nothing but a sham. Since the founding of the Islamic Republic of Iran, according to known information, 17 Jews were executed. Later on, we found out that there were more Jews executed, but were not publicized and documented. As you all know, thousands of Jews had their properties confiscated, and hundreds were jailed in this period. By far, the most common accusation being Zionists or agents of Zionism. At least 12 of our brothers were and still are considered missing while attempting to leave the country through the ground border in Pakistan. We know and have information that some were detained in border city jails, but no news of them according to the Iranian government. Under these conditions, we decided to raise our voices. It was not only our right, but our obligation to do so. Some in this city called us militants and not mainstream or the established leadership of the community. We were warned we were jeopardizing the lives of the jailed Jews and the entire community in Iran, as well as our own lives. We were told, be quiet, we are handling things. The infamous quiet diplomacy. Our struggle to let the world know about the Shiraz 13 required us to spend 2 years of our lives, day and night, for this effort, and as we were doing whatever was possible to us. It is precisely in this struggle that we found our true partners. We found men and women dedicated to the cause of human rights and fighting anti-Semitism. Leaders who had learned from the past, and their motto was the famous saying by Simon Wiesenthal, "For evil to flourish, it only requires good men to do nothing." It was with the assistance of Rabbis Heyer and Cooper and Simon Wiesenthal Center, and of course other friends, that we were able to directly communicate with many world leaders and influence their decisions and policies towards the rulers in Tehran. Through these efforts, the case of Shiraz 13 was constantly at the forefront of all dialogue with the Iranian regime. Thanks to all those efforts, and here I do not discount efforts by other groups. Not only the 13 Jews were not executed, as was the case in the past, but all were eventually released, and I'm forever proud to have participated in that struggle. Since those memorable days, much work has been accomplished with the cooperation and leadership of Rabbis Marvin Heyer and Abraham Cooper. I only name a few here. Honoring the memory of the late Abdul Hussein Sardari on Yom HaShoah in 2004, the late charge d'affaires of Iran in Paris during World War II, who saved hundreds of Jews from the Nazis. This case was widely publicized and showed how Jewish people are grateful to the kindness of good Iranian people. We arranged special tour of the Museum of Tolerance and its Holocaust section for the exiled Iranian journalists. This effort subsequently had much coverage in Iranian exile media as well as internationally. In 2006, we conducted Yom HaShoah program, which was live broadcast to Iran after the Holocaust denials by Ahmadinejad. We are told thousands, if not millions, of Iranians saw that program, which was attended by over 1,500 people at Nessa Synagogue. We worked with the Simon Wiesenthal Center in uploading articles and information about history of Holocaust and Judaism in Farsi on the website to expose Iranian youth to the facts and not lies. We had their assistance in the case of the beating of 2 young Iranian Jewish men by a gang of young Iranian Muslims, who the case was referred to the district attorney and later on was determined as a hate crime. There is a very famous quote by Simon Wiesenthal of blessed memory. Freedom is not a gift of heaven. You have to fight for it every day. Tonight, I am proud to present to you a true fighter and a leader in the fight against anti-Semitism and human rights. The dean and founder of the Simon Wiesenthal Center and Museum of Tolerance, the recipient of 2 Academy Awards for Best Documentaries, the man who Newsweek magazine has called the most influential rabbi in America in the years 2007 and 2008, or as he likes to be referred to, a plain Jew from Lower East Side who cares for his people, our keynote speaker and our true friend, Rabbi Marvin Heyer.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here. The evening is late, and so I will make my remarks. I'll go right to the subject of my remarks tonight. Before committing suicide, Adolf Hitler predicted that within a few centuries, hatred for the Jews would renew itself. Hitler was wrong. It took only 6 decades for anti-Semitism to raise its ugly head and to become a serious concern everywhere in Europe, in the Middle East. The same images that we thought were gone forever: synagogues firebombed, cemeteries desecrated, Jews beaten in the streets, cautioned against wearing yarmulkes in the heart of Paris. Of course, the new anti-Semitism emanates largely from Islamic fundamentalists who have a broader agenda than Jews. We may be their first targets, but make no mistake about it, their real objective is to end all of Western civilization. What makes this particularly frightening is that the anti-Semitic regime in Iran hopes to introduce for the first time in the history of the world a nuclear anti-Semitism. More troubling is that these fanatics adhere to a philosophy unheard of even during the dark days of the Third Reich, namely a reverence for the culture of death. They would gladly exchange life on earth for life in the next world. Even the SS, the most notorious murderers of all time, did everything possible to preserve their own lives. Adolf Eichmann, who directed Hitler's Final Solution, escaped to Argentina, living the life of an ordinary laborer. Mengele, Dr. Joseph Mengele, the infamous doctor, angel of death, he lived in dingy apartments in Brazil. Stangl, the commandant of Treblinka, lived from hand to mouth, regularly changing locations because he wanted to live another day. But today's jihadists don't value life at all. They can't wait to blow up a plane or a school so they can enter paradise and sit at God's table. As the technological revolution moves forward, one can only dread what these fanatics have in mind as they gain access to new chemical and biological weapons. And then, of course, there is the energy crisis that the congressman just mentioned. Many historians have often wondered why Hitler decided to attack the Soviet Union in 1941, forcing Nazi Germany to fight on 2 fronts. Why didn't he wait until he won the war with England? The answer is, Hitler attacked the Soviet Union mainly to secure her oil fields for Nazi Germany, because he realized whoever controls energy would win the war. Today, Ahmadinejad's Iran, the Iran of the mullahs, whose leaders call the Holocaust a myth, who regularly call for the destruction of the state of Israel, they have the funds to fuel their program. They have the money. Iran possesses 10% of the world's oil reserves, holds the world's second largest natural gas reserve. Iran understands the turmoil the high cost of oil is bringing to America's security and economy. They know that very well. They have a keen understanding of global politics. Their leaders believe that they have the clout and the fortitude to defeat any global sanctions. Why? Because they understand Russia's fear of a world dominated by a single superpower, as evidenced by Russia's recent aggression against a small democratic neighbor, Georgia. Iran understands the mega power of China and her desperate need for Middle East oil. They're experts in using that knowledge to thwart and delay any crippling UN sanctions directed against her. They are even spreading their wings to India, hoping to build a 1,600-mile Iran-India gas pipeline, which would make India more dependent on Iran. Many pundits continuously question Israel's obsession with Iran. They can't understand why Israel is pushing everybody for concrete action in Iran. These critics forget President John Kennedy's attitude toward Cuba, a tiny island during the Cuban Missile Crisis. In the height of the Cold War, President Kennedy was willing to risk World War III with the Soviets over the issue. Let's be very clear. If today Cuba again attempted to introduce nuclear weapons, America would preemptively destroy their facilities because our country would never tolerate their presence on an island so close to the United States. Even though the Cuban people are not jihadists, they love life as much as the American people. For Israel, my friends, this is not a theoretical discussion. It is a matter of life and death to get it right. Nearly 6 million Jews live in Israel, and the leaders of Iran speak daily of their lust and passion to destroy the state of Israel. Which brings me now to two of the most anti-Semitic organizations in the world parked on Israel's borders, Hezbollah and Hamas. Regarding Hezbollah, I couldn't believe the reports coming out of the Middle East last week that next week in New York, the Secretary General of the United Nations will pressure Israel to pay $1 billion worth of compensation for damage caused in the 2006 Lebanon war. That is not fiction, my friends. I repeat, the United Nations wants Israel to pay $1 billion for the Lebanon war, the war that Hezbollah started by crossing the border and kidnapping Israeli soldiers, the war that Lebanon was complicit in, the war that the senior officials of the government of Lebanon stood by and did nothing week after week, watching sophisticated rockets being trucked in, unloaded from ships, from cargo planes, cleared by Lebanese customs officials, never demanding any explanations. Where are these rockets headed for? Never protesting. If you start a war with Israel, we will be held responsible. They couldn't care less. Now, the United Nations, instead of saying to Lebanon, You brought the war on yourself. Now the United Nations says, no, Israel should pay the bill for the 2006 war. This gives new meaning, my friends, to the word hypocrisy, double standard, and in Yiddish, the ultimate chutzpah. Let us be very clear. Israel wants nothing more than to live in peace with our neighbors. But the world must understand that Israel is not going to self-destruct and just play a game, let's pretend they're not there. Everyone knows what Israel got for unilaterally withdrawing from Gaza. You know what she got? She got Hamas and Qassam rockets fired at our towns and our cities week after week. But it didn't have to be that way. The Palestinian people could have used that opportunity to develop the port city of Gaza and made it an international tourist attraction, showing the world that their real intention was to live with Israel in peace, side by side. But instead, the Palestinian people empowered Hamas, which in turn made it absolutely clear that their ultimate objective is a Middle East without the state of Israel. In such a climate, it would be absurd for Israel to make unilateral withdrawals from the West Bank without the world dealing with Hamas, because no other country in the world would do that, and neither should Israel. If Mahmoud Abbas wants a Palestinian state, he must do what every other state under similar circumstances would ask in return. Remove the only true obstacles to Palestinian statehood, not Israel, but the dominance of the terrorist organizations that have taken over the Palestinian society, who refuse to recognize the existence of Israel. Many world leaders, including President Jimmy Carter, criticize Israel for not talking to Hamas. Carter says he sat down and talked with Hamas, and he knows they'd be prepared to talk to Israel. Should one engage terrorists and anti-Semites who declare up front they will never recognize the state of Israel? I, for one, don't think so, because the only results of such talks would be bestowing credibility and stature on the likes of Khalid Mashal and the terrorists, handing them a propaganda victory so that they can recruit more followers by telling their followers, look who came crawling to our door as a result of our Qassam rockets and our refusal to compromise. I am sure, my friends, that the leaders of the KKK and the American neo-Nazi parties in America would love to dialogue with an American president. But no American political leader, Democrat or Republican, would do so because of the political firestorm it would create by bestowing legitimacy and credibility on hate mongers. Those same standards should apply internationally as well, especially to Ahmadinejad, Hamas, and Hezbollah, whose terrorist attacks have maimed and killed thousands. The events of the Holocaust, my friends, played a significant role in shaping modern Jewish history. The survivors of the Holocaust lost their entire families. They had no homes to return to. Few countries were willing to accept them. But despite these challenges, they remained undeterred, looked ahead to the future. In 1947, the ship Exodus was on its way to the Promised Land with 5,000 Holocaust survivors aboard. The survivors published their own newspaper, which they wrote out by hand. They called it Baderech, on the way. How telling. Those passengers who lost everything, their suitcases contained nothing but a collection of bitter memories. Still, they picked themselves up by the bootstraps, wiped away their tears, never taught their children to become terrorists or jihadists. Instead, turned despair into hope, embraced life, learned to smile again, to find love again, to have families. The name of their newspaper was what Jews have always believed, that we remain, despite everything, Baderech. We're always on the way to that better and more humane world. And that's exactly what a young surgeon saw the day after the terrorist attack last year in Yeshivat Merkaz Harav, where a terrorist opened fire in a library, killing 9 teenagers. The doctor was taking his regular bus to work when the bus driver pulled over to the side of the entrance of the yeshiva. He shut off the engine, and he suddenly informed his passengers that his nephew was amongst those murdered, and he asked their permission to say a few words in his memory. He spoke of a 17-year-old boy, always eager to help, who loved learning, and all he ever wanted to do in life was to become a teacher and inspire others. After he was speaking, the bus driver, an elderly widow sitting near the doctor, clutched his hand and whispered to the doctor that she would also like to say a few words because her neighbor's child was amongst those murdered. She got up on the bus and spoke of a young man who every Friday would visit her and bring flowers for Shabbos, and he would impart some words of wisdom from the Torah. This Shabbos, she said, there was no flowers, and she instinctively knew why. Most of the passengers on the bus were now in tears. The bus driver returned to his seat, turned on the ignition, and just like the Jews on the ship Exodus, he took his passengers on the way, Baderech, to continue to live out their lives in search of that elusive but sure to come better world. That, my friends, is the antidote to hatred that has kept the Jewish people alive for 3,500 years. Our refusal to change course, our insistence that despite everything, to always teach our children how to repair the world and not how to destroy it, how to sanctify and revere life and not to demean it. That is the song of eternity that the Jewish people have endowed the world with, and it is the song we still sing to this day. When Israel's neighbors find that philosophy of life, then and only then will peace come to the Middle East. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi Heyer, for your sober and powerful assessment of the situation we face today. Good evening. My name is David Payman, and I have the privilege of serving as a 30 years after board member. While this is the end of a groundbreaking day for our community, it must be for each and every one of us sitting here tonight the beginning of a contribution to our community, our country, and our homelands. My beginning started shortly before I was granted the privilege to work for President Clinton. My colleagues' undying love and commitment to public service was my fuel to keep me moving forward and to found the Interfaith Alliance at Harvard Law School, bringing together Jews, Christians, and Muslims in support of peace in the Middle East with security for Israel. This was actually quite a surprise for me because only a few years before, I had barely graduated high school. 30 years ago, a generation of Iranian Jews fled a repressive regime in order to provide freedom and opportunity for themselves and their families. They sacrificed for us. Let us not treat their sacrifice and opportunities in vain. Today, when Iranian women are denied basic fundamental rights in Iran, when Israel is facing threats of nuclear holocaust, when we are a significant proportion of our community, yet do not have leaders in community and national government reflecting the strength of our numbers, we have no choice but to take action and contribute. These times do not afford us the luxury of letting others act with a prayer that they act for our interests. Jimmy Delshad showed us that a first-generation Iranian immigrant can lead the most well-known city in the country. Rabbis Heyer and Cooper ensure that the world never forgets the tragedies of yesterday while defending our rights as Jews today. Sam Yebri had a vision of bringing 1,200 brothers and sisters together to remember our past and plan for our future as one people. Tonight we ask, why not you? Why not now? Sign up to be a big brother or big sister and make a change. If you have not already done so, register to vote and make a change. Voice your concerns in the local newspapers and act on them to make a change. Tomorrow, find a cause and solicit your business partners to plan and contribute. Tomorrow, go to www.30yearsafter.org and contribute to the future of our people. Tomorrow, pursue the dream that brings happiness unlike any other. The dream that is embedded in each and every one of us by our Creator. Tomorrow, do Tikkun Olam and make your life matter not only to you, but to your community, your country, and your homelands. Today is the first step for many of us, but for all of us, tomorrow, the journey must begin. In recognition of Sam's vision and the profound impact that this day has had in our community, I would like to invite the board members of 30 Years After on stage to present Sam with a few special gifts. Sam, these are gifts from the 40 or so members of the 30 Years After board who sweat with you, cried with you, and laughed with you over the past 2 years.
Thank you, guys. And to quote my good friend David Payman, the journey's just begun, and I'm glad to be here with you. There's a lot of work to be done. We'll take a day off tomorrow. We'll get an email from me on Tuesday.
I'd like to thank all the speakers for being here tonight and especially all our guests, all the young guests, all our parents, all our brothers and sisters. You are the future. Please wake up tomorrow and make a change. Thank you very much.
Thank you.